Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So, look, welcome to the program today. We are going to cover a couple of different topics. We're obviously going to start off today with the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. And I also wanted to jump back and talk about the humorous video I posted yesterday. Some of you enjoyed it. Some of you who have probably not seen Team America, World Police, will probably watch it, and some of you will probably watch it again. Now we did have some of the thought police that felt that thought crime was being committed, so they jumped ship. They departed, unfortunately. But I'm sure we'll have new subscribers. New people will join the program of reason. Now, before I talk about that further, I want to again talk about what's happening in the Ukraine. So Russia has opened another front. This time it is within the vicinity of Kharkov. Now, I've talked about this previously. I don't believe that the Russian Federation will end the conflict or see its military goals and objectives achieved if it has not seized control of Kharkov, the second largest city in the Ukraine. Now, we also have another objective, which many believe is Odessa. I have a difficult time right now in the concept that Russia could take Odessa. Look, if we see the Ukrainian military really start to fall apart, lose cohesion, possible. Now, we have not seen that happen yet. Morale is very low for the Ukrainian forces. They are having great difficulty recruiting personnel. Right now, it is more difficult for the Ukrainians to get personnel to fight in this war than it is to get weaponry. Here, you'll hear in the mainstream media in the United States that the biggest issue for the Ukrainians is weapons. That's not the case. Now, that is an issue. They would love to have an unlimited supply of money to pay Zelensky and Zelensky's underlings, and have the money to have as many Patriot missile systems as they desire, to have as many ATACMS as they desire. Yes, that is something that they would like. The Ukrainians would like that very much. I would like the government to just give me money. I mean, why not, right? Anyway, that's not going to happen. But they are giving it to the Ukrainians. Definitely to the Ukrainians. If you, as I talked about before, were to go to Maui, the city in Maui that burned down, not one person's home has been rebuilt. Not one business has been rebuilt in Lahaina. Not one. Zero zilch. Billions and billions and billions and billions. I can't sound like Carl Sagan. Maybe, maybe not. Have gone to Ukraine. And the people of Maui, the city of Lahaina, $700. Got that one-time check. $700. And not one house has been rebuilt, which is covered by insurance, which people paid for. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to sidestep that. But again, compare and contrast. It's important to do so. Now, the Russians have opened up 2 operational zones to the north-northeast of Kharkov. Some people call it Kharkiv, some people call it Kharkov. You call it what you want. But two areas, as you can see here on the map, are now hot zones of conflict as Russian forces crossed this area, crossed the border zone, and are now engaging Ukrainian forces in these areas. We're receiving reports of very heavy artillery strikes, ongoing artillery strikes on the city of Volchansk, this locale. And just to the due west of Volchansk as well, we are seeing Russian armored and infantry activity as they move across these border areas. Now, some people believe that the Russians are attempting to establish a buffer zone in this area. And some believe that this could be the start of a very large operation by the Russians to seize control of Kharkov. Now, it's too early to actually define what is happening on the ground. It could be one, and it could evolve into something different. But right now, we do know that very heavy military activity is taking place in these areas. The Ukrainians allege that fighting is continuing, and they believe they have stopped a major Russian assault. But again, we're not there. We're not there on the ground. We can't see what is happening, so it's difficult to say. There could be a breakthrough happening as we speak, but it's very difficult to ascertain that information. Now, we suspect fighting will pick up in this area, and at this point, we don't believe the war will end without the Russians seizing control of this major city. This is a very important military target at the start of the war. And for the Russians, not being able to seize this target was very discouraging for them. It was and is an absolute high priority target for the Russians. And I, again, don't believe the Russians will stop this conflict until they have taken control of the city. Had the opportunity to listen to old General Ben Hodges. Ben Hodges was a U.S. three-star general. He commanded a brigade of the 101st Airborne Division during the second war in Iraq. 101st Airborne Division. He is a supporter of the unitary one-party state under its current figurehead, not leader, Joseph Biden. Now, during this interview, it was very interesting to hear his opinion about U.S. support for the Ukrainians. And that's simply based on Russia does not respect the sovereignty of other nation states. So I have to ask, and I've talked about this before, what gives the United States the right, just asking the question, to pick and choose, to select what nation states have the right of sovereignty? I would say that Iraq, before the U.S. invasion, had a right to sovereignty. One would argue that the secular dictatorship that existed in Iraq was much more peaceful than what exists now. And the United States decided to invade Iraq and disregard Iraqi sovereignty. Libya. Now this kind of falls under the purview of quote-unquote NATO, a humanitarian mission that really was the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. Now, was Muammar Gaddafi a nice gentleman? Probably not. Was he a dictator? Absolutely. But was Libya relatively peaceful prior to the NATO military operation, which eventually killed that very dictator? One would argue yes. Libya has, since the NATO intervention, been in a state of continued civil war. The ones who submit fighting each other. And then finally, Serbia. Did the United States, did the North Atlantic Treaty Organization respect Serbian sovereignty over one of its areas of territory, Kosovo? Kosovo has always been Serbian. Now, because of the birth rate of those who submit, this mega cult, I'm going to touch on that video that I displayed yesterday a little more. I'm going to offend some more people. You shouldn't be offended. You should just listen. Or not. Kosovo was part of Serbia. And the United States, under Slick Willie Clinton, decided that that should no longer be the case and used military force to not respect Serbian sovereignty. So again, General Ben, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? That is never talked about. Don't have to talk about it. The media here in the United States don't ask those hard questions. Doesn't happen. So again, Ukraine talking about joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Talk of putting NATO military bases very, very close to some very sensitive areas of the Russian Federation. I've talked before, what if there was some Sino-Canadian treaty in which the Chinese started to put military bases in Winnipeg? What if Chinese cruise missiles were placed in Winnipeg? What if Chinese military shipments were being brought into Vancouver? What would the United States do? Would the United States respect the sovereignty of Canada if that was happening? You tell me. If Chinese Air Force, ground forces, strategic rocket forces were moving into Mexico, what would the United States do? Would it be similar to what happened in Cuba? Would ultimatums be issued? Of course, without a doubt, the United States would respond. So why is it not okay that the Russians respond to the same scenario? And that's what's really terrifying for me, is the uninformed urbanite here in the United States sees the Russian Federation in the same category as it sees Serbia, Iraq, Libya. I've talked to you about recent conversations I've had with the uninformed urbanites that believe that we, the United States and possibly NATO, could just categorically take military action against the Russians. Why don't we just do that? Yeah, why don't we just do that? Insanity. So back to that video, Team America, World Police. I think that is one of the funniest movies of all time. Absolutely hilarious, with the little puppets who are absolutely not politically correct. But yeah, couple of folks that are the thought police did not appreciate it. It's interesting how various religious and cult type sects react to criticism. Very interesting. Here in the United States, there was a so-called artist, Mapplethorpe, who decided to submerge I believe it was a Christian cross, in a vat of HIV positive urine. And what is the response from Christians in the United States? They don't really say much. Does it offend them? Probably. But they just tune it out usually. The Jews can take a joke. Matter of fact, some of the Jewish folks that I know oftentimes joke about themselves. Ruthlessly. But if you start joking about those who submit, and look, Muslim, Islam, that's what it means. Those who submit. And those who submit prior to be calling Muslim or Islam, they were called Mohammedans. And that changed to those who submit. Because look, back in the day, you submitted, or you got your head whacked off, and it still happens today, actually. It hasn't changed much. You get your head whacked off, or you pay the extortion fee. Pay up or you lose your head. Simple as that. Submit or lose your head or pay up. Give us your loot. Give us your money. I mean, we don't even know what Muhammad's name was. Muhammad's an alias. In all probability, he was probably a criminal, changed his name, and there we go. Off to the races. Off to the races. Now, again, that was a long time ago. 600 years after the birth of Christ. So since then, obviously, it's taken off from cult to what some folks believe is an actual religion. The recitation, the recantation, the recitation, the Quran. That's what it means. I mean, the real guy, if you look at history, the guy that really got this going, especially the recitation, was Abu Bakr. That was the guy. I'm going to get hell for this one. But you know what? Whatever. But again, have you noticed that? I mean, I've noticed it quite a bit. Okay to joke about Christians. Okay to joke about Jews. And again, the Jews joke about themselves worse than anyone. Anyone. But you start joking about those who submit and about their leader. You make a cartoon about that dude, and you're at risk. You're at serious risk. And it happens time and time again. Where I reside, in the Midwestern United States, and close to a fairly large major city, we have those who submit walking around in groups of about 40 to 50, 60, 70. I have no idea what their purpose is or what they're doing. But they march around town with these green and black flags written in Arabic. And they just roam around en masse. Not dressed as Westerners, dressed like they're still in Baghdad or Mosul or some podunk town south of Cairo. They're not integrating, and they're, quite frankly, intimidating people. And that intimidation is focused on, you must submit. That's all I got for the day. As always, Durka, Durka, Durka.